And in Kansas, a judge has ruled that on a driver's license, the only options for gender are male and female. Several hundred transgender people had changed their permits so that the sex listing matched their so-called gender identity. Opponents say the ruling will cause immediate harm to the transgender community. And joining us now is Julie Gunlock, director of the Independent Women's Forum's Center for Progress and Innovation. Julie, thanks for coming on. Always so good to see you. A lot to chat about today, including this news out of Kansas regarding those who identify as transgender no longer being allowed to change their sex on their driver's license. I want to get your thoughts on that.
It is very important that official documents like driver's license, birth certificate, all of these things that are used to identify you show your actual biological sex. We have seen men increasingly enter women's spaces, whether that's domestic violence shelters, women's prisons, and it puts women at unique danger because we know biological men are stronger than women. And so it's really important that when we're deciding where individuals belong, what shelter they belong in, what prison they belong in, we know their biological sex. People can deny that there's a difference between the sexes, but that's not true. And I'm glad to see that they're going back to this binary choice. Sex is binary. There can be a million different genders, but we need this for the safety of women's spaces.
Yeah, and that's a good point to make. A lot of controversy over this new Miss Netherlands who was crowned over the weekend because that beauty queen is actually a biological male and the first transgender woman to win the title of Miss Netherlands. Julie, your take on this?
This is a perfect segue because it's the same thing. It's men getting into women's spaces. But you know, these contests are no longer about beauty, composure, grace, your ability to speak on important political issues or world affairs. These contests are increasingly becoming about intersectionality. How many intersections do you tick off? And virtue signaling. This is unfortunate because, again, this is a biological male taking scholarships and awards from women. It's the same thing. Women's spaces are really being taken over increasingly by men who identify as women.
Yeah, also making headlines. Meta, as you know, launched its Threads app last week to compete with Twitter. And it seems already that people are saying that certain voices are being silenced, such as conservatives and those who question gender ideology. Julie, what more do you know about this? And does this surprise you?
This isn't a surprise at all. Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and Meta, whatever you want to call it, they have a long track record of quashing conservative speech and deplatforming conservatives. We've already seen this happen with Libs of TikTok. This is one of the biggest accounts on Twitter that Libs of TikTok doesn't do anything but expose what the left wants to do. And many of the people on the left who are transgender activists are targeting kids. So Libs of TikTok has experienced trouble on this new platform. And again, it's not a surprise. Zuckerberg has been involved in politics. We know what he did during the 2020 election, spending $400 million, largely through leftist nonprofits, to engage and really sway that election. So we know that he is a political person, and I'm not at all surprised that he's again trying to quash conservative speech on this new platform.
Julie, I want to switch gears. A disturbing incident took place at a Catholic church in Brooklyn, New York, just a few days ago, where someone spray painted black spray paint all over a statue of Our Blessed Mother. Now, fortunately, that person was found and charged with criminal mischief as a hate crime. That said, what do you think is fueling all of this? And what do you think we as Catholics, how do you think we should respond?
This is a breakdown of civil society. We've been seeing this in a lot of urban areas in this country. We saw the footage just yesterday. It was absolutely terrible of a young man on a moped shooting at people. He killed an 87-year-old man and injured three others. And this kind of vandalism that we're seeing at churches, particularly Catholic churches, again, it's a breakdown in civil society, but it also reflects that Americans aren't as religious and don't have the sort of respect for religious institutions as as Americans once did. So it's a very disturbing thing that we're seeing. And as for how Catholics can respond, we need to pray. We really need to pray for these people, these disturbed people doing such awful things. We need to pray for our church and our Pope and the church's leadership. And go to church, support your local church.
Yeah, we have about a minute left or so, Julie. But, as we heard from Owen earlier, President Joe Biden met with King Charles III and the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak earlier today ahead of the upcoming NATO summit in Lithuania tomorrow. What do you make of President Biden's stopover in London, and how productive do you think those meetings were?
I'm not sure how productive they were, but I will say the stopover in London is clearly an effort to sort of soothe over the ruffled feathers of those who are still against the use of cluster bombs. Now, the cluster bombs that we use in the United States and are going to give to Ukraine are much better. They do not leave as many unexploded sort of ammunition on the ground. What Russia is using is much less sort of intelligent weapon, but it still is interesting to see the Biden administration switch on this issue so quickly. And so I think the British are very much against these cluster bombs. And so again, an effort to shore up the alliance between the two countries.
And we're going to leave right there. Julie, always great to be with you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.